Welcome to the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra.
So my guest today is Lindy Brock. Those of you who know me and know us here at Elliott Wealth Management recognize full well that she's my partner. We work very closely every day across all of the workflow that occurs here as we try and help our clients at Elliott Wealth Management. So today I had Lindy on. We're going to talk about live beneath your means, which is a term, it seems to me, that's been out there a very long time, and it's kind of thrown around. I don't know if it's explored enough, not just what it means, but how you could kind of carry that out and approach it in your everyday life. So, Lindy, I appreciate you taking some time.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the time to do this with you.
So live beneath your means. What does that term mean to you? How would you describe it in your own words?
Well, I would say that it is, in a nutshell, just spending less than you make.
Good. And have you always been have you always had an awareness of that mantra, living beneath your means?
Not really. My early adult years, so I had kids early, obviously. And, early on, I think I was more in the mindset of just trying to make do, like trying to survive. And it was never about making good financial decisions or paying attention to my money, because that's not really how I was raised.
So looking back on it, now you're older, wiser.
Yeah.
Not in survival mode like you just described. But let's say you did have an awareness. Let's assume for a moment that it was instilled in you as a child and a teenager about living beneath your means. Would you have been able to carry that out while you were in that phase of your life? It seems like probably not. These are wonderful concepts, but not necessarily always able to implement. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair. But there are some things, knowing now what I know, there are some things that I probably could have done back then that would have set me up and made me more comfortable and to feel like I had some control instead of just being in survival mode.
Very good. So the definition, I think, is you must not spend more than you earn. You want to spend less each month, or at least equal to the amount of money that you make each month. This way, you can build wealth, make smart financial decisions with money. And there are other benefits too that I would like to speak about and get your opinion. Obviously, if you don't spend everything you make, then you could take some of that money and put it towards wealth building. That can be, Lindy, reducing debt or increasing assets. Reducing debt could be mortgage, credit cards, car loans, student loans, etc. Building wealth could be adding to 401k accounts, Roth IRAs, investment accounts, saving money in the bank to buy real estate, invest in a business, that kind of thing. But if we focus on you personally a bit, Lindy, so now that you're not in that survival mode you spoke about, you're older, make more money, life is different now than it was in the past for all of us. Do you find that living beneath your means gives you a greater sense of peace? I'm talking now about not really the financial part of things, but more the mental part of money and trying to live a fulfilling life. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. The first step, I think, to taking control and earning that peace of mind is just having an awareness of what you actually are bringing in and what you're spending. So without knowing, you're obviously in the dark and you have that anxiety about if you're going to be able to pay the next month's bills. But knowing what's coming in and what's going out, that is the number one step in having that peace of mind.
It also decreases stress, it seems to me, when you're spending more than you make and piling on debt, especially consumer debt. It's stressful. And it's weird. Sometimes people do that to reduce stress. Sometimes going on vacation reduces stress. Going out to eat reduces stress. Going to do something fun, going out drinking, going to a concert, ball game, can be viewed as stress reducing because those are quote unquote fun activities. I think in the background for people that do that, when they can't afford to do that, when their money is out of control, when they are not living beneath their means, that also has a counter effect that increases the stress. Because even though you're doing that fun activity, in the back of your mind, someplace, maybe as deep down as in your subconscious, you're stressed about it because you know this will have to be dealt with at some point. So I think living beneath your means, aside from building wealth aspects, which we're going to talk some more about, I think from a psychological, mental, emotional standpoint, it gives you greater peace and reduces stress tremendously. And I think we see that in our work with clients. When we meet a potential client and they begin working with us and we help them across a range of areas, and they get their money more under control. They're paying attention more purposeful. They're seeking the counsel of subject matter experts, which we are. They get peace. They get less stress through that process. And it's one of the more rewarding parts of the work I think we do. Would you agree with that?
I think a big part of that is we help clients and the people that we work with to see long term and to plan for the long term. The bar trips and, going out to eat, those are all short term gratifications that, unless you have a distinct goal to move towards, you're gonna keep falling into that trap and making those mistakes.
So in terms of live beneath your means, what are some basic strategies, tactics that individuals, couples, families can use to maybe get to living beneath their means? I'll throw out one, and none of these are terribly original. If you read books on this subject, you peruse the internet on these subjects, you're going to find this stuff. I mean, we're basically talking about things that we've been exposed to over the course of our career. We're not talking about anything really revolutionary here, but we do want to bring it to our listeners' attention. And to begin with, I'll throw out pay yourself first. What most people will do when handling money is they will pay bills, spend money, and perhaps, and I'm doing air quotes, we don't do video here, but I'm doing air quotes, then if there is money left over, that is money that they would use to save, invest, do something wealth building with. And the better way to do it is to figure out how much to save, invest, put to work towards wealth building first, and then do the rest after, including the spending. That is a long-standing, proven way to improve financial decision-making and get you towards living beneath your means in a very serious way. Is that something you've ever used?
Yes, actually, that is one of my biggest contributors to improving my financial situation. I did used to not pay myself first, and it was always if there's money left over, then I'll stash it away. Instead, I have set things up where, and it's kind of funny that I think it's because I went through financial hardships that I think it's funny that I do it this way, but I have put my savings on autopilot and I keep increasing those savings to the point until I feel pressure to reduce my spending because I don't have enough left over in the month because I have saved so much. So, and that's kind of a way where, but I have so much gratification that I see my savings, whether it be my 401k or, my personal savings, just keep going up in value because I've made that decision and it's forced me to spend less.
Very good. And you added another wrinkle to the pay yourself first, and that is systematize. Another way to help engage in living beneath your means is to add some systems to the handling of your money. And the 401k is a prime example of this. For anyone that has a 401k, that typically is one of the largest sources of someone's liquid net worth. And the reason is it happens systematically. It comes out of your paycheck. Once you sign up, it comes out of your paycheck. It's not available to spend from the jump, and it becomes a habit very quickly. And so the money has a tendency to accumulate quickly because of the systematized approach and the inavailability. Is that a word? Unavailable? Yeah. The money's unavailable. I probably screwed that up. And that's one of the reasons why the 401k is such a powerful vehicle. If you don't have a 401k, you have to approach that retirement accumulation with discipline, doing it on your own. So you've added some systems into your money management process in your household.
Most of my money management has been systematized, whether it be my extra mortgage payments, my extra vehicle loan payments, setting up my credit card to pay it off every single month. Everything I have set up where it automatically comes out, it's automatically paid. Everything is paid, extra payments or whatever, everything is automatically set up. And whatever's left is what I have left to spend.
Very good. I want to talk a little bit about budgeting because we are fans of budgeting to a certain extent. I'll talk about me personally. I've never had a budget, and I could see the usefulness of it. We counsel some clients to utilize a budget. Budget's a broad term though, Lindy. A budget could be narrowing it down to how much you spend on, bananas, or how much you spend on groceries. Or it could be just more, this is how much I'm going to spend to run the household. So you could dig very, very deep into the budgeting, get really into the minutia. That's never appealed to me in my household, running my household. Now, I think that could be, though, is that we always lived beneath our means. Like, I've always had a mentality of living beneath my means. And because of some luck, some life circumstances combined with financial knowledge and discipline. So I never really had an out of control spending kind of thing. At my core, live beneath your means is natural to me. So the way that Joelle, my wife, and I have always approached it is we have our financial goals. And there were times when the goal was to buy our dream home. Another time it was to buy a vacation home. Other times it was to pay down debt. But the point is we had financial goals. And as long as in a year we were working towards that financial goal, funding college, increasing our emergency fund, maxing out our retirement accounts, as long as we were working our plan, we'll talk about plans in a moment, and we were actively allocating money towards the achievement of those goals, whatever other money we have left over after that, again, pay yourself first, it really didn't matter what we spent the money on. If I was, as an example, hitting my retirement savings goal, hitting my college savings goal, hitting my paying down debt goal, whatever else might have been on the agenda, as long as I was doing that, whatever money was left over, we had the freedom, the peacefulness of spending it however we want. And there are areas in our life when we splurge, and areas of our life where we spend money where others looking into our life might say, well, why do you do that? I mean, we like food, we're foodies. This is a good example. We will go out and spend a lot of money on going out to eat and getting a nice bottle of wine. We like that. And in a sense, it's splurging, but it's sort of in the budget because we are actively engaged in building wealth, working our plan, allocating money to the achievement of those goals. So we've always set it up that way, which is part system is systematizing it, part paying it yourself first, but less about specific budgeting, like how much we have for entertainment this month. What do you think of that first off?
I think that's great. And for the people that have, adequate income, I think that's a great way, as long as you're meeting your goals, being able to spend on the things that you really enjoy and that enhance your quality of living is acceptable. I would say for people that don't have a lot of extra income, making use of, even if you don't keep a budget that you stick to, because budget is such a ucky word, and it makes you feel like you're it's like a diet, like you're holding back, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So it seems yucky, but the way I look at the budget and how I've used a budget is it's really looking in the past to see what I've spent on certain categories, like shopping or groceries or eating out. I shouldn't have said groceries, because groceries are kind of a given. Like, you're going to spend what you're going to spend on groceries. But eating out is something that is kind of extra. You don't have to spend it on.
That's right.
Or shopping. You don't have to go overboard with shopping. But if you look in the past, and if you have a tool that helps you look in the past to see what you've spent in these different categories, you can kind of see patterns. And if you're having money problems now, if you look and see, what you have spent in different months and where you should be, then you can kind of see what things you need to look out for in the future, or what you might need to dial back a little bit.
Yes, I think that's good. I alluded to having a plan before. I talked about like my plan. So I think that people should have a wealth building plan. That's one of the areas we work diligently with our clients is, to have a wealth building plan. And everybody's situation is different. Sometimes it will involve debt more than in other instances. Sometimes it'll involve more retirement savings compared to somebody else. But to have a wealth building plan, and for people that don't have a lot of extra income, because maybe they have a lot of debt, or maybe they're not making a ton of money, then looking at your spending, and having a spending plan is worthwhile, which is a euphemism for budget. It's just not as loaded a term, a spending plan. And there are occasions where constricting spending, reducing spending makes sense. There have been times in my life where we have reduced spending for any number of reasons, including we're pursuing a goal, or at other times things have just got out of hand, where you just go on a little bit of a run where you say, hey, let's just dial it back. Other times it's been because being self-employed, my income has not always gone up year over year. There have been many instances where we've had income go down. A number of years, income has gone down noticeably. And so there are times when you say, hey, we got to back up on spending. So in terms of the wealth building plan, and part of that could often be a spending plan, there are times when you do have to dial back spending. You can't really live beneath your means and always go full throttle on spending money. We want to enjoy life, and you don't want to go on too much of a spending diet for too long, because that can suck the fun out of life. But there are times when you might need to do that. And you've probably seen this, listeners, or read this, where you could start taking lunch to work instead of eating out. That's a nice, easy way you could save money. Not getting coffee out and eating that at home. Cutting down on vacations. Not buying as nice a car. I mean, there are numerous ways that you could cut down on spending without necessarily really changing your life that much or making you feel like you're not getting a fulfilling use out of your money. It's been a while since you've had to do that, right? But you've done that where you've cut down on spending, and you may have to do it again in the future. There's an ebb and a flow with these things. What we're talking about in part is being purposeful, right? There are some people that don't live beneath their means, not necessarily because they don't want to, more because they're not paying attention.
Yep.
And life happens fast. If you have children, you're involved in a career, you might have a spouse or a partner, you're juggling lots and lots of priorities. And for some people, the money part of things kind of just gets swept under the rug. We're talking about in all of these different little strategies regarding live beneath your means, at the core of all of that is to be purposeful. And that plays into having a plan. But aside from that, it's the mentality of paying attention to money, even if things are happening so fast and there's so many priorities. Some people may want to sweep it under the rug, especially people that don't necessarily like the topic because they want to just push it away. But that's really, really counterproductive. They ought to get some help from a financial planning firm like us or some resource. You don't want to sweep it under the rug. Is that your view as well?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, we were talking about spending just a little bit ago. One thing I wanted to bring up and get your thoughts on is the psychology. I mean, we're not psychology majors, but of keeping up with the Joneses and the pressures that are all around us. What are your thoughts on that and how somebody can really be mindful about that pressure?
Wow, I could do an entire episode on this. It's a hot button issue for me. I'm glad you brought it up. So there's a few things. You don't know what somebody's financial situation is just by observing their spending habits. I think that's the first thing. Sometimes it can be an illusion. I think back, Lindy, this is in the 2004, 2005 timeframe. So, I was in my mid 30s and I was in a different business model, but I was affiliated with a bank at the time. And there was a gentleman that would routinely come in the bank, and he was tall, dark, handsome, impeccably dressed in a suit that was worthy of Hollywood. And I don't remember what the car was, but it was an amazing vehicle. I don't know if it was a Mercedes, BMW. I don't remember the specifics, but it was a jaw-dropping lifestyle statement vehicle. And he would come in the bank routinely. So I was in the bank and, my job was to attract customers to the investment financial planning side of the banking relationship. So I was interested in finding more about this gentleman.
Right.
And what I learned after investigating is most of the time when he was coming into the bank, he was taking cash withdrawals off of his credit card.
Ooh.
What do you call it? Early advance. Like you could go into the bank.
Cash advance.
Cash advance. Thank you. He was taking cash advances off of his credit card. And sometimes he asked for more than was available. So he had all of the trappings of success. At first glance, he's somebody that you would look up to financially because of the gorgeous suit and the well-manicured hair and the gorgeous car, but he was as broke as a joke. So with keeping up with the Joneses, what you observe when you see people's spending habits, the vacations they have, the cars they have, the dresses they might buy, you just don't know whether they are strong financially or not. It can and often is just an illusion. And then on the opposite side, and there's a famous book on this subject, The Millionaire Next Door, I've met people, and there are ample stories out there, which the opposite of my well-dressed gentleman in the bank, people that appear to be everyday, ordinary, middle Americans driving your average car, wearing your average clothes, going on average vacations, and they are fabulously wealthy and have tremendous cash flow. You just don't know. So the keeping up with your Joneses is a fool's errand because you don't really know the important part of the equation, which is what's happening with money in their household, what their income is, what their wealth is, how much debt they are. You just don't know. And there are a lot of people that buy all kinds of stuff and do all kinds of fun things, but they're very over leveraged and they have a lot of debt. If you want to live your life that way, have at it. That's not what I want for me and my family. I'd be stressed out to no end. I don't think that's what you and your husband and your family wants to do. And that's not what our clients who come to us want to do. So I think that's the first thing with the Joneses. This is highlighted by social media today.
Yes.
And I'm not a big social media user. I really don't care much about what people say about my stuff, how I spend my money. Part of that's I'm 50 now and I don't really give a crap. I never really did a lot. But then you get to a certain point and you realize it's a loser's game anyway. So what you see on social media is an extension of what I just talked about. It's just on steroids. You're looking at somebody's highlight reel when you look at what you're seeing on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all of that. It's not necessarily real. And again, you don't know some of the key metrics as far as what's happening with money. You're just seeing an expression and it may be enviable and may not be. So I know I'm being long-winded, but did I capture a little bit of what you were hoping for?
Yeah, I think you did. And one comment that I want to make on one of the things that you said, the opposite, where, somebody, they don't appear that they spend a lot or live extravagantly, but yet they are, closet millionaires next door. I would say probably 89% of the, 7-figure plus net worth clients that we have live that way.
Yes.
And you would never know by meeting them on the street that they are millionaires. So I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
There are a segment of people, wealthy or not, that are flashy, boisterous, big
Yes.
personalities, want to show you their beautiful watch and want to flaunt over you the car they have. And in my opinion, those people are just jerks, regardless of whether they can afford it or not. They're just, and I could use different terms that probably aren't
Right.
family friendly. But the majority of people out there are not jerks, whether they have money or not. And they have some humility and they are not trying to make you feel crappy about yourself. And most of our clients that are financially successful, that have built up strong amounts of wealth, are good people. And if you just sat with them at a bar or over, coffee, you would not necessarily know how successful they are because they're just good people and they're not going to be particularly flashy about their wealth. And even if they do have the nice stuff, they're not jerks about it.
Right.
They're not like, why do you drive that? Look at what I drive. Or how do you go and how do you vacation at a place like that? Why would you stay in a hotel like that? You should do this, because they don't act like that. You see
Right.
that in the media and the movies. And there are certainly people like that out there, but they're few and far between. They just garner a lot of the attention because they're so big in their personalities. But that's not the real America that I've experienced over my 50 years, including almost 30 years in this industry.
Agreed. The next thing I wanted to bring up was the concept of living paycheck to paycheck. I know you had kind of talked about it earlier, but the dangers of living paycheck to paycheck without, say, an emergency fund. So how important is an emergency fund, and a little of the dangers of living paycheck to paycheck?
Well, let me start by saying there's some people out there that would reject live beneath your means, and they would put it under the category of you only live once. And I'm going to live for now, and I'm going to spend what I make now because I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how many days are promised to me. And there is a lifestyle to that. And that has some merit. There is some truth to that, because I'm not a believer in save every nickel. I would not describe myself as someone who has the first dollar I earned, but it's a matter of balance. The trouble with that lifestyle, that attitude, is that when something happens, you don't have options, especially if you have something negative that happens. And I have a very close family member who lives that lifestyle purposefully, and he rejects to live beneath your means, and he doesn't appreciate what I have done in my approach with money. And I think it's okay. He has nobody counting on him. You know, he's a single guy, no children, and that's how he wants to live his life. Cool, whatever you want to do. The trouble with that, though, is when something happens, he's got a big problem. When the car breaks down, if he has to travel to see our mutual family member that has health issues, it's a crisis. And there's certain things he simply can't do. And that's very much a sacrifice. And to me, you're taking days where you don't feel stressed because you're not worried about money and you're not planning and you're living for today. But then when something happens, you have a lot of stress, because when you have money and when you have a plan and you have an emergency fund, when something happens, you have options. So you have choices that are available to you, and that's less stressful. That adds peace. So I want to start there. Now, for individuals that don't choose it, but just because of lifestyle, they're paycheck to paycheck, it can be difficult to dig out of that. But it can be done. Lots of people have done it. You need to use some tools to reduce spending, focus on paying off debt, because that's often a culprit, figure out ways to increase income. There are ways to get out of that paycheck to paycheck. Some of the tools we've spoken about will address that. And granted, not everybody can do that all the time, but by being purposeful, paying attention to money, following proven strategies to be smart with money, you can get out of that paycheck to paycheck, if not in the short term, probably in the mid and the long term. But you can't do it by not paying attention and just throwing your hands up and saying, this is the way that it is. You can change your life. I don't want to seem like Tony Robbins and that kind of thing, but you know, you're a perfect example. You said you had some significant financial hardships at certain points in your life.
Yes.
And they have been followed by terrific period of success financially, personally, and otherwise. And America's full of those stories. So don't despair would be my message if that's you and you're listening to this. So thank you, Lindy. This was a great conversation. I think our listeners, including our clients of Elliott Wealth, will love hearing you and I banter back and forth. If you are listening and you're not one of our clients, but you would like to talk to us about our resources as we help our clients win with money, check out our website, elliottwealth.com, and you could sign up for a complimentary consultation with us. And subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. Thanks again, Lindy. I'll be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of the information provided at these websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management, LLC, not affiliated with SagePoint